And hello and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 Podcast live stream edition. It's Tuesday night. I am your host, Stephen Nagishi. With me, as always, is the online editor, associate editor, I should say, of the sports blog Awful Announcing. It's Ken Fang. Ken, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you, Stephen? Good to be on with you as always.
Yeah, we got a lot of things to talk about, so we're going to try and pinpoint and delve in as much as possible. But as always, we're going to start off with the Week 13 NFL review. And Ken, let's start with your Cleveland Browns. Unfortunately, they suffered a loss. I believe it was 34-19 against the Los Angeles Rams.
Yep.
In Los Angeles, and 36-19, excuse me. And Joe Flacco made a start as your team has continued to go through a lot of quarterbacks due to an injury. And Joe Flacco, at least for the part of the game, even though he was just picked up and was on a practice squad not too long ago, did look okay for a moment. But then, the team started to welter, and you saw Flacco start to throw some picks. Excuse me, and now he was reverted back to the practice squad today. And Ken, what are your thoughts on the Browns' performance and the where they stand the rest of the way?
Well, they're still in the playoff hunt, which is where you want to be. They're 7-5. They've lost the last couple of games. The quarterback situation is not good, Stephen. As you mentioned, Joe Flacco, he looked okay. I still have to. It's tough for me to wrap my head around that he is the Cleveland quarterback, even though he hated from the hated Baltimore Ravens for most of his career. He was with the Jets last season, so I continued to hate him. But now I have to like him because now he's on my Browns. I will say that I was impressed with him for the first half. I did see part of the game through Red Zone. I will have to say that the Browns are in a state of flux right now. Of course, they had Deshaun Watson. They've had a whole bunch of quarterbacks, rookies. They had DTR, who's hurt. They're trying to go with journeyman quarterbacks now to try and pass the time. It's right now the defense is trying to hold up what the offense cannot do. And it's tough to win like that. I just don't see I'm very pessimistic right now about the Browns for the rest of the season, even though they're right now, I believe they're behind Pittsburgh in the playoff hunt. I think they are. I think they're sixth right now, or fifth or sixth right now in the playoff hunt. So I right now I'm pessimistic that they can last. I see other teams like Houston playing much better than them. And right now, unless the quarterback play can stabilize somehow, I don't see the Browns making the playoffs.
Yeah, I tell you, yesterday, the Bengals, even without Joe Burrow, managed to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, by the way, your next opponent, your Browns are next facing the Jacksonville Jaguars, at least at home, this Sunday. So the schedule looks like, with the Browns, they have the Jags. It will be very interesting because, the Jags, Trevor Lawrence suffered an injury yesterday in a loss. And early reports are it's not a serious knee injury, but we'll wait and see what happens. Certainly, it's a completely different team without Trevor Lawrence. With Jacksonville, in addition, they also lost Christian Kirk, their leading wide receiver for the season, unfortunately. He was diagnosed with an injury. He's out up to about 8 weeks. So basically, that's two months worth of action. And, they also suffered a couple of different injuries. So this is going to be a very interesting game between the Jaguars and the Browns. Certainly going from a warm Florida to a very cold Cleveland at this time of the year. At least the Browns and their defense could give them, certainly a run for their money and maybe keep it close to the very end, much like the Bengals. did yesterday, pretty much hang on for the entire game. And then the week after that, the my Bears, who was on a bye this week, is coming to Cleveland to play the Bears. Excuse me, the Browns.
Yep.
So we have certainly something to talk about. The day after, the Browns and the Bears face each other, since we both talk about each other's team. And then you head to certainly the Texans, who are on the rise this year with new head coach DeMeco Ryans and not to mention quarterback C.J. Stroud, who is very close to getting to 5,000 yards and even a lot more by then. And then you have the discombobulated, dysfunctional New York Jets coming into Cleveland to play the final home game of the season. Certainly, that should be considered a huge win. That should be considered an easy win. And then you head to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. And if both teams are still in it, maybe the loser still end up going home, and the winner might still have an outside chance of getting into this playoff game between the Browns and the Bengals. So
Right.
I'm sure that the Browns' thoughts are that whoever's a healthy quarterback, as long as the weather and the defense gives them the edge to stay close or keep them in the game, at least the Browns will still likely be in it until they're officially and mathematically eliminated, Ken.
Yeah, it's going to be the Browns have a tall task, and like I said, the quarterback play has to stabilize. If DTR can come back, I'm not sure if he can at this point. He was hurt in the previous game.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be able to. He was showing some promise and doing some great things as the backup to Deshaun Watson. I'm not sure, Steven, right now. The Browns gave me some hope earlier this season, but right now they're in a state of flux. And Myles Garrett can only do so much. He's only one man playing great on defense. But right now, when you lose players, when you lose runners on defense, on offense, your star running back, when you also lose your main quarterback, it's really tough. It's really tough, Steven. And we've seen it. The Bengals, as you mentioned, they lost Joe Burrow. Jacksonville yesterday lost Trevor Lawrence.
And lost the game too.
And quarterbacks are dropping left and right, and you hate to see that. And luckily, the Bengals have Jake Browning, who played great yesterday, 32 for 35. I think it was 32 or 37 altogether, throwing for over 300 yards in last night's Monday night game, Steven. When you have a great backup like that who can come in, and of course he's played pressure football in the Pac-12 too, coming out of college. You have a guy who's learning under Joe Burrow, who is a Heisman Trophy winner, a national champion, getting to see him on the bench and basically seeing what he can do. Browning did a great job taking on Jacksonville yesterday. It was a great game between Jacksonville and Cincinnati until Trevor Lawrence got hurt. But it's going to be, I think, it gives the Bengals some hope. Right now, they're on the outside looking in the playoff hunt. But like I said, they're looking better right now, even though they're on the outside looking in than the Browns, who are in, and maybe on the outside looking, when all is said and done.
Yeah, I agree. I was very impressed with the Bengals, the way they performed on the road. At least, John Browning, as long as he can, keep his act and, he can stay healthy, I think that, the Bengals find themselves, still in the race, even if it's a long shot, as long as Jake Browning can, operate within his own means and, not to be forced to play or act or being asked to be the, Joe Burrow, excuse me. And then I think, the Bengals will likely to be in a better position to make the playoffs than maybe your Browns. But again, NFL is a week by week league. So, let's see what happens this week, with the every game. The other game certainly that caught many's attention was the 49ers blasting the Philadelphia Eagles at
Yes.
home 42-19. I was watching this game basically, most of it. I got to tell you, Eagles were kind of, teetering on the edge the last couple of weeks. The week before, they had to come back, being down to force the game against their Buffalo Bills into overtime, only to win it in overtime. And then, the Eagles have been kind of, teetering, like I said, being pushed around a little bit. Even the game against the Chiefs the week before, on the road, they had to come back from that as well. So it's not an easy, road you know, for Eagles to, beat good teams on a consecutive weeks. But, the 49ers, they really pushed them around and bullied them. I was very impressed with what they did offensively and as well as defensively. So, the Eagles have their works cut out. They go to Dallas to face the Cowboys on a Sunday night, and whoever wins that game may well not only put themselves in a very good position to win the NFC East, but also put themselves maybe at the top seed in the NFC, in my opinion, Ken.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Sunday night. That's going to be probably the best game that NBC is going to have all season long in the Sunday night package, which has been very weak schedule, by the way. But as you mentioned, Philadelphia didn't look very good. They were dominating the game the first quarter of the game. However, they could only get field goals against San Francisco, and then Brock Purdy using his offensive weapons, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, they were doing fantastic. So
Yeah.
I have a feeling that right now Philadelphia, which up until this time was getting outgained but still winning the games. Now you're going into a Dallas, which almost beat them in Philadelphia a few weeks ago. Now here's a chance for the Cowboys to go, as the Philadelphia Eagles go into the Cowboys AT&T Stadium, a place where the Cowboys have not lost this season. And I think going back to last season as well. So here's a team that is right now very confident, playing very well. They have an excellent defense. Dak Prescott finally looks like he is gelling as a quarterback. You have Micah Parsons, who is just dominating on defense. Here is a team right now, Steven, that has to be thought as the favorite going into that game as Philadelphia and Dallas play each other. And I don't know how I don't care how many tush pushes you can do, as Philadelphia is well known to do that. Dallas right now has to be considered the favorite. As much as I hate to say that, as much as I hate the Cowboys, you have to consider them to be playing much better, and at home especially. We could see a similar situation where the Cowboys could dominate Philadelphia in a similar vein, how San Francisco did the same to Philadelphia. They may have given the Cowboys the blueprint on how to play Philadelphia on Sunday.
Yeah, this is going to be a very most watched game. Excuse me, most watched game on Sunday Night Football in quite some time, and this is going to determine the probably the top seed in the NFC. Like I said, Dak Prescott, having lived in Dallas for a couple of years, he was always an easy target for local media and now even the national media as well, based on the things that Stephen A. and LaShawn McCoy does on their national syndicated shows, which is borderline asinine. But yeah, I think this is the year that Dak Prescott is really starting to come on after somewhat of a slow start. With the Mike McCarthy taking over play calling duties away from Kellen Moore, who was fired and went to Los Angeles Chargers. It is starting to come around. If the offense is still humming, and then if they can get the running game going, with Tony Pollard, who's not exactly what you call a bell cow back like they used to have with Ezekiel Elliott in their prime. I think the Cowboys has as good of a chance as any team, and they can make a huge statement if they beat the defending national NFC champion, Philadelphia Eagles in their home stadium on a Sunday night when the whole nation is watching. All right, let's look at the other game. This one was a Sunday night game, another game that was garnered a lot of attention. The Packers beating the Chiefs 27-19, and I got to tell you, the Chiefs are in a pretty bad spot right now, and they have struggled the last 2 weeks, losing Monday night against 2 weeks ago, they lost to the Eagles at home in a very, very wet condition. They couldn't catch a ball if their life depended on it. And they came back from down 14-0 to beat the Raiders the following week. And then this past Sunday night, their offense struggled once again to move the ball. And, as a Bears fan, and a lot of the Bears fans were kind of, starting to dread that Jordan Love is maybe turning the corner and going to torment the Bears for years to come again. And it certainly his numbers in the last couple of weeks certainly look good. I like to think that it's probably more of a byproduct of having a great coach like Matt LaFleur, more so than anything else, because even during the game, Jordan Love still overthrew some receivers or couldn't connect with his receivers, more so than anything else. Uh-huh. So, for the Chiefs, this is, really, really starting to, feel the heat or crunch time right now, because if they continue to lose, they will still probably make the playoffs. There's no question about it. They can still win the, weak AFC West. But then right now, they're not looking to be competing for the top seed at this point, because right now, I think they could probably be like a 3 or 4 seed. And then for the first time in Pat Mahomes' era, they're going to have to go on the road to play, the top seed if they ended up finishing maybe a 2nd, 3, or 4 at this point. Because they're hosting the struggling Buffalo Bills at home. They go to New England the following week, which is going to be an easy W anyway. And then they welcome the Raiders. And then they also have the Bengals at home. Bills and Bengals, 3 opponents that they have faced in the AFC championships in the last couple of years. Certainly there's a lot of familiarity and a lot of grudge match there. And then the Chiefs go to Los Angeles to play the Chargers to close out the season. So, at this point, the Chiefs cannot afford to lose any more games if they want to have home field advantage. But right now, their receivers are really having a hard time making plays or making catches. And even Travis Kelce is now starting to get a lot of flack because he's been hanging out with Taylor Swift, who, by the way, was actually in Green Bay this past Sunday. She flew in to attend the game. But, it will be interesting to see, how the Chiefs bounce back in the next 5 games. Certainly, I don't want to say that this could be the end of an era, but if Chiefs ended up getting bounced out of a playoffs early, after coming off winning the Super Bowl, there could be some changes personnel-wise, and maybe some coaching changes could be expected, especially on the offensive side of the, with Matt Nagy, somebody that I'm very familiar with as a former Bears coach, and having spent time, most of his coaching career with Andy Reid with Philadelphia and Kansas City. Matt Nagy's offense has been struggling to generate points, and maybe, Matt Nagy could be fighting for his coaching life in the next 5 weeks. And if things don't, turn around in a hurry, maybe Nagy gets demoted or fired, and maybe Andy Reid might ended up taking the play call sheet.
Well, we're projecting there, Stephen. That's still a ways away.
No, but I'm saying that the Chiefs struggling is definitely a concern right now.
Right, sure. A lot of that can't be on Matt Nagy. As much as I know you like to rag on him, he's not the one catching. He's not the one dropping passes. His receivers are not doing a very good job in holding on to it. And granted, we're seeing Mahomes struggle a little bit as well. So, but to your point, definitely it was a season of transition with Eric Bieniemy going to Washington, their offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy coming in from Chicago. There's going to be a little bit of adjustment there, but I'm going to have to say that I do think that the struggles. I mean, they're probably on a Super Bowl hangover. There's no doubt about that. But it's going to be interesting to see if they were at first seemingly cruising for a little bit, but now some of the problems that have coming on are coming to roost. I'm not sure if we can actually if Matt Nagy is going to take a fall, at least at this point. But I will say that there is definitely struggles. The receivers definitely have to hold on to the ball.
Sure.
When the ball is right here, you can't catch. You have to make that catch. The receivers have to make that catch. So that's a big problem. So that's not on Matt Nagy. But I do have to say I do agree that some of his calls can be a little bit better, and the adjustment is going to be a little bit different. But I do have to say that I don't think we're at that point where Andy Reid is going to fire Matt Nagy.
Now, keep in mind, Andy Reid did give up a play calling back in 2017 when the Chiefs were struggling to get to the playoffs, which helped Matt Nagy's cause to get a head coaching job with the Chicago Bears, even though he blew a 21-7 lead against the Tennessee Titans back in the 2017 season, if you remember. Yep. So if Andy Reid wants to, do the 180 this time, he does play calling, or maybe have somebody else do the play calling instead of Nagy. It's been done before. So it will be very, very interesting to see where things are with the Chiefs in a couple of weeks. I don't think they will struggle to make the playoffs. They will definitely make the playoffs. But if they struggle against the likes of, say, Buffalo next week at home, and then also the Bengals, certainly the teams that the Chiefs are very familiar with going up against in the playoffs the last couple of years, then there could be some loud calls as to, maybe they need to scapegoat somebody. But again, like you said, it's not all on Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy is the one that certainly not dropping all those passes.
Right.
So, but it will be very, very interesting to see how Andy Reid and the organization head honchos see things from see things moving forward. All right, Ken. Let's move on from the NFL and let's talk about the another story this week. College football playoff fiasco that took place, and it was I tweeted that no matter who was going to get selected, the players, former players, announcers, analysts, bloggers, writers, nobody is going to be very, very happy about it. And unfortunately, it certainly turned out to be the case on Sunday. And I'm going to give you the floor and give your thoughts on the committee's selection and how it was handled.
Well, I thought that what happened was going to happen. Alabama was going to get in. Texas was going to get in. Michigan and Washington, of course, were locks to get in after they won their conference championships. I really thought, though, if the committee had any guts, had any gumption, would decide to do something, and knowing the fact that next year they had the 12 coming in, they could have made a statement by saying, hey, look, we're going to take teams that have won their conference championship and undefeated. I thought Florida State should have been in. I also thought that Texas should have been in as well. So for me, I thought it should have been Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and then Texas in that order. But instead, the committee looked at the fact that the loss of the quarterback by Florida State, and instead they decided to watch the ACC championship and said, "Oh, because they can't generate any offense. Let's be worried about how this would look on the ratings and how it would look on TV. So let's just exclude Florida State."
Mm-hmm.
I know that the SEC has power. I know the SEC with Greg Sankey is a conference that holds a lot of water in the college football playoff. But I would have thought it would have made a great statement by the committee to take in Florida State. They did everything you asked for. They were 13-0. Yes, they had an injury. Yes, they didn't look good the last 2 weeks, but they won. Their defense carried them. And I thought that that's what they should have done. They should have taken a team that is 13-0, should have brought them in instead of 2 1-loss teams. And yes, Texas hasn't lost, but they won their conference championship. So that's exactly what you would have had. 4 teams that have won their conference championship, Stephen. That's the way it should have been. But yet they decided to go with Alabama. Yes, they won their conference championship. Yes, they lost to Texas. But because Texas beat them earlier in the season, they had no choice but to bring Texas in as well and leave Florida State out. I'm going to get angry, but I don't want to get too angry over this because, to be honest with you, by the time January 1st rolls around, people are going to forget about this. But I think the College Football Playoff Committee should have made a statement and just said, look, SEC, I'm sorry, you are being excluded this year. Let's take in the 4 teams, and let's take in the 3 teams. Let's take teams, especially Florida State, that was undefeated and did the job and got in. And so much for the SEC, but yet the committee decided just to go the safe route, take in Alabama, take in Texas, along with Michigan and Washington, and that's how we're going to have to deal with it this year. Hopefully, I mean, even with 12 teams next year, Stephen, we're still going to get angry schools that have been excluded, but still, this to me was most egregious.
Yeah, I truly believe that SEC bias played a huge role in this. ESPN certainly has been carrying the SEC for a long time, and now they're going to be the exclusive home of SEC after CBS went off air Saturday after the SEC championships, and they certainly have a lot more motivation, certainly to carry the program. They have the SEC networks, that they have, along with the Longhorn Network, and Texas, of course, is joining the SEC next year, along with Oklahoma. And
the Longhorn Network is going away after this season, so that won't.
Okay. So thanks for the correction. Certainly, it makes no sense to have a separate networks when you're going into the SEC. Yeah, but again, the SEC bias is certainly playing a huge part in all of this. And what makes me angry is that the Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis tweeted that he wished he was injured a lot sooner so that the team can at least prove that they're capable even without him much sooner, which really pisses me off that somebody who played 6 years of college football like he did, gave everything. It should have been maybe somebody who could have been a Heisman Trophy candidate if it wasn't for the injury, and helping Florida State get back to the prominence that they've been away for a while. Ever since they won their last national title, and having gone through different coaching changes, and now they brought back stability and prominence under Mike Norvell.
Yes.
have to say something like that, and it just makes me sad that somebody who had to gave his all his health and everything has to tweet something like that and has to feel that he feels sorry that the FSU wasn't selected. I understand the best team and then the deserving argument. But to me, I think FSU certainly deserved to be in there because
100%.
yeah, because their defense proved that they could hang with the with the best of them. And I understand quarterbacks injuries screw things up, but that's why you have a backup, and then you still have about at least 4 weeks to prepare for yourself. So things can change between now and then. You still have players getting injured, or and then or maybe some players decide, and I'm not going to play because I'm turning pro. Like Caleb Williams and the other underclassmen who decided that they wanted to protect their own health, for the upcoming draft. So you're going to have players and teams that looks completely different than where they were, like say a week or two ago. So it's unbelievable that you have these committee members somehow decide to make it so complicated and sometimes even contradict themselves about the whole argument about the best team versus the deserving team, because the best and the deserving team, and then I believe in this case Florida State, they both go hand in hand too.
Right. I just think that I think it would have been a great statement for the committee to say, hey, look, we understand that there was an injury. We totally understand what happened here. But you won your games. Now, let's say if Florida State had lost going into the ACC championship and lost the ACC championship, this wouldn't have been an argument. Alabama deserving to go in, Texas deserving to go in. But Florida State did all it was asked for, won all of its games. Yes, a quarterback was hurt, but injuries happen. And
exactly.
I don't care how they look on the field. They won the game. They won. And I'm just sad that for those kids. But if I'm Florida State and I'm playing in one of those bowl, I think they're playing in the Orange Bowl, Stephen.
Against Georgia, who, by the way, lost and somehow was dropped from top number 1 all the way to number 5, which, number 6, which even is kind of more baffling. That
Yeah, but again, that's a ranking by the committee. But if I'm Florida State and if I win the game against Georgia, I do what Central Florida did a few years ago and declare myself the national champion. That's what I would do.
You bet they will. If FSU does beat Georgia, I think they will likely do the same thing. Like you said,
that's what I would do. I would have a big banner, run it on the field, and say 2023 national champion, and I don't care what happens in the college football playoff. But still, I feel bad for those kids. I feel bad for Florida State. Stupid politicians are getting involved now by trying to sue. It's not going to help. Don't get involved in this. It's sports. I know you're angry. I know that they were screwed. Florida State was pretty much screwed out of this, but there's no need for politicians to get involved. But to be honest with you, even though we're going to go to 12 teams next season, Stephen, we're still going to get this controversy. Some team is going to get left out. Teams are going to be angry. It's not going to be any. As much as I felt that we should have gone to 12 this season, still, I just feel bad. This isn't the fairest system. Having 4, it took a long time to get here. It took another long time to get to 12. I really honestly feel there should be 16 teams to make it fairer. But even in a 68 team field in the NCAA tournament, there's always a team that feels that they're screwed and left out, and we always get outraged. So no matter how many teams that are going to get in, we're always going to have outrage. And this one was more egregious than others, I have to say.
Yeah, I agree. And again, my argument is that the best teams, and the deserving teams, they're similar. And in this case, Florida State, fits the bill. You can't control the injuries, and
Right.
you certainly cannot value the Texas beating Alabama in week 2 versus the whole body of work. Florida State went undefeated. Okay, I'm
Yep.
not a Florida State alumni or booster at all, but you went undefeated in the entire regular season, and now that doesn't count. That doesn't mean anything at all. That's a really crazy argument that you went undefeated and somehow because you're down to a third string quarterback. And ironically, the committee chairman who booed Powell, I think he's with the North Carolina State, which is the ACC school, and he makes the argument about FSU, about the body of work and being down to the third string quarterback. Like somebody from the ACC is screwing a fellow ACC school to get to get to the playoffs, which certainly would have been a bigger payout, and that would have been shared. The remedy would have been shared within the ACC, and somehow the committee chair from an ACC school is screwing another ACC school, which makes absolutely no sense, and which might hasten the FSU's anger and desire to leave ACC. Because I know I read a report today that the Miami is looking to leave ACC as well. So, and because we know that the college football, as its current format, is over, and it will be completely different moving forward now with the demise of the Pac-12. Excuse me, and the ACC is probably looking like the next the big conference that is more than likely to be dissolve in maybe a couple of years from now.
Yep.
And if we're going to have 12 teams and 16 team playoffs, and people are going to be pissed off about because of the who beats what in week what, and then the injuries to a key players and stuff like that, then I probably think that we should just probably get rid of the conferences now, Ken. And then I tweeted about this. We're probably becoming more and more like a European soccer model where you have different tiers of schools, competing against one another, and then you have a different teams from the bottom tier moving up, like a promotion relegation system. If the tradition is going to be damned, we might as well just completely go radical. And I know it might sound crazy and it's probably a little bit difficult to implement, but if we're going to be complaining about the tournaments and formats and stuff like that, let's just give every team a fair shot. Just have a different tiers. Like a college football Premier League, and then like a Division 1, 2, 3, and then just basically put everybody, and then just let them compete. And then we're probably going to have like a NFL style where you're going to have maybe 14, 16 teams competing against each other. You're going to need more money, right? And college football is going to generate more money. There's no question about it. Fans can complain all we want, but it does bring attention. It does bring cash. So I feel like if the conferences and the divisions are going to be out of the way, maybe that's where we're eventually going to head in that direction, in my opinion, Ken.
Yeah, I think that's probably down the road. We are going to see eventually some relegation, Steven. We'll probably
maybe in 10 years we're not even going to have like an SEC, Pac-12, or Big Ten. Forget about those conferences.
Well, there might be
just put everybody in the same league.
I think there'll probably be one league and a Big 12 and an SEC division. That'll be two divisions, and maybe 25 teams each, because we'll have 50 teams. And I think that's where the Power 5 is going to go to. They'll all be enveloped into one. But I think that's down the road. It's still going to take some more radical, realignment. But we'll see what happens there. But right now, in the present, at least next year we're going to go to 12. But still, I think next year, Steven, I can say right now, mark my words, there will be a 13th team next year that'll feel just as screwed as Florida State was this year. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that'll be. Yeah, I don't think we'll never have anything. That will satisfy anybody.
No.
unfortunately. So, but as long as the money is there, I think that will certainly. There's going to be a lot of biases, certainly, intentional or not, towards the SEC, because SEC brings attention, fans, and bring money. So
Yep. That's what
SEC
they
will
do.
always, unfortunately, going to rule the college football moving forward, is something that I think we learned from this past weekend. All right, Ken, let's move on to the Major League Baseball free agency starting this week. It is the owners meeting down in Winter. Is it owners meeting down in Nashville?
Yeah, it's owners winter meetings right now.
Yeah. And this today was something that really I was very, very nervous, because there was a rumor of Shohei Ohtani being mentioned all over the news today, about Ohtani's decision. And certainly Ohtani has made it clear that he does not want the negotiations and stuff like that being leaked out. But then you hear stories about Toronto being involved. The Giants are already talking, and you had Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager of all people, speaking out about having already met Ohtani last week and saying that the meeting went very well, and then that he was asked about it, and then he said that it is not in his personality to lie about stuff like that, and then Dodgers GM Brandon Gomes later had to clarify, and then he wasn't aware of stuff like that. So, and then the crazy story as a Cub fan today, listening and reading all day today, was that Cubs were out of the running, and then the reason that the Cubs were out of the running was because that the Cubs didn't want to match the 10-year, $500 million salary, which was preposterous to begin with, because there have been all kinds of smoke around Cubs' interest in Ohtani, which Cubs were interested in Ohtani back in 2017 when he was posted. Unfortunately, because the Cubs in the National League didn't have DH at the time, he went to the Angels, and there's a still possibility that he goes back to the Angels, which certainly could offer him not just the money, but also allow him to stay the course in terms of training, treatment, and also doesn't have to change the routine. So, but Bob Nightingale of USA Today leaked out an information that the Cubs were not interested in matching or exceeding the 10-year $500 million mark. And people in Chicago have been going berserk because the Cubs ownership, which has been very much maligned the last several years after they won the World Series, and they basically started to rebuild, and finally last year they came very close to getting to the playoffs, and they snatched Craig Counsell away from Milwaukee, and then to fire former Cub David Ross, show that they were ready to win. They were ready to spend money. But the thing is, 10-year $500 million, like the starting line. And that's something that you and I have been discussing about this. That's the money you have to put in at least to get to the table,
Right.
And it's hard for me to think that the Cubs for suddenly back out just because the 10-year $500 million price tag was too high, when it was been discussed for a long, long time that that's the starting minimum. Now, again, he had a UCL surgery, which prevents him from pitching all of next year. But even as a DH, with his power and the fact that the money that you can generate from Japan, through revenues, the merchandise sales, etc. Signing Ohtani at 10 years, 500 or even $600 million, I think pays for itself. And, I like to think that, Bob Nightingale was just making I don't want to say making stuff up, But it would be hard for me to sit here and believe that the Cubs suddenly backed that because they realized 10-year, $500 million starting asking price suddenly became too expensive for the Cubs, in my opinion,
Yeah. Well, the whole talk about Ohtani right now, and that's the talk. That's been the discussion about the the free agency this winter. There's also been discussion, and this is something about reporters are very angry that Ohtani is keeping his discussion secret, and he has the right to do that. He just doesn't want things to leak out. But reporters who generally and some of them just try to do hot takes here. They're discussing about Ohtani, and that's a great. I'm glad you found that article. Buster Olney and other reporters are saying this is a missed opportunity for him in Major League Baseball. Well, by talking about it, you're keeping this in the news. This is kind of like a Streisand effect here, Stephen. The more that you're complaining about it, the more that more people will talk about it. So this is actually good for Major League Baseball. For people who say, "Oh, this is a missed opportunity," well, you're keeping it in the news and you're talking about it. So in a sense, it's a Streisand effect, Stephen. So, and I think this is good. I think it's actually fine for baseball and it's fine that Ohtani wants to keep it secret because he doesn't want things to leak out. I totally understand that. And I think that these reporters who are complaining are just complaining for just for complaining sake. And the fact that they're making these silly arguments and silly complaints, it's a Streisand effect, and they're making this a big topic, and they're keeping it in the news. So in a sense, their complaints about Ohtani are basically helping baseball.
Exactly. And you and I, of course, being Asians and Asian Americans, we understand the the Asian American cultures about keeping things quiet and
Yes.
just maintaining our own selves. So it's kind of ironic that all of a sudden I'm starting to see Ohtani being attacked, and I call the Chicago radio stations back in the summer when Ohtani's name was being mentioned as a possible free agent. And one thing I called and mentioned was, is American public really comfortable about Shohei Ohtani becoming like the highest paid player in baseball history? Because $600 million, Ken, that is unprecedented. Okay, and then and I don't want to be that guy, Ken, but if Ohtani's name was, say, let's just for example,
Yep.
John Williams, and it's a generic American name, okay, or Jose Ortega or something like that, with the same similar skills and the record. I have to wonder, will anybody be writing an article like this, or will anybody be even complaining about his secret free agency approach, as well as about him making that kind of money? Because I heard, listening to Chicago radio station today on my work, driving today, people were just basically already, wanted to throw the Ricketts under the bus because of that, Bob Nightingale's reporting about, because they didn't want to pay, 10-year, $500 million in the first place. And I get it. Ricketts are, very, very unpopular owner because certainly, they tore down the Cubs, but they also, outside of baseball, their politics has certainly, came into question as well, especially Tom and his brother Pete, who's a Republican, senator from Nebraska, and for the Cubs to drop out because his price tag was so expensive from the get-go, is as plausible as saying, Pete Ricketts told Tom, don't sign this guy because I don't like Asian people making that kind of money. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know I'm just spitballing, but it just doesn't really make sense all of a sudden for the Cubs to drop out when they knew the asking price was, that expensive. But now, certainly Bob Nightingale is to the Cubs what Jason LaCanfora is to the Chicago Bears, because neither man is certainly isn't considered credible when it comes to those reporting about those teams anyway. And then John Heyman refuted that the Cubs are not out, or at least been told by the Ohtani camp that they are not out of the running. Now, I'm fully understanding that of all the teams that are still in the running, the Cubs are maybe further behind the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I found it very interesting that Dave Roberts casually said that he met Ohtani, had a very good conversation, because either A, Roberts felt so confident, or maybe Ohtani camp decided to say, hey, yeah, I'm coming to the Dodgers. Yeah, say whatever you want, just blurt it out there. I still don't buy that the Dodgers would even casually mention that stuff, knowing that they wanted to keep it a secret. So I'll be very, very curious if Ohtani, even with the fact that Dodgers leaked out the meetings, would still go there. And then people will say, yeah, Ohtani was always going to go there anyway. Screw him,
Right.
There was going to be, that people who will say stuff like that. And that's understandable, or maybe he's a diva, nothing more than a diva, and he was using the other teams, Giants, Blue Jays, and the Cubs, just to drive up a price or something like that. Certainly.
Right.
But I'll be very curious, will this going to be more met with a backlash? Whether it's somewhat racially motivated or not, but this bears watching moving forward regarding the Ohtani's decision, because it seems as though, I think, as long as Ohtani doesn't make those decisions, the free agencies and the trade certainly doesn't going to happen. All we see so far just a bunch of minor deals, 1-year deals and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people are, holding their breath right now and say, please make a decision quickly so that, we can talk about other stuff. And I think, with all due respect to Buster Olney, I think that's where he and the other writers are coming from,
Yep. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few days. Toronto is supposed to be in the mix right now, and that's something that wasn't expected. I think Ohtani.
Braves are also included as well.
Yes, and the Red Sox are too. But the talk about Toronto has heated up over the last few days. I think it would be a great thing for Ohtani to be in Canada. For him to be well loved, I think Toronto would be a great place for him. And it would be a great thing for the Blue Jays, which have not been quite relevant in that town for quite some time. I think of course, the Maple Leafs are always going to be number one in that town. The Raptors winning the championship a few years ago, they have actually leapfrogged over them, and the Toronto Argonauts in the CFL do quite well in that town too. But if I would love to see, I know it wouldn't be great for the United States, but Ohtani in Toronto, it would be great for baseball in Canada, and I think that would be a wonderful thing. And there is a great Asian community in Toronto that we both know, Stephen, and I think that will be absolutely great to see Japanese fans in the stands at the Rogers Center in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing is for certain, whatever amount that he gets and wherever he chooses, there's going to be a lot of people complaining about it.
Of course.
Then, and we'll find out where those people are coming from, whether it's, racially motivated or not. Certainly, it bears watching, and, whether it's local media or national media talking about it. Certainly, it's going to be very, very interesting. And again, anybody who makes it a racial epiphany about Ohtani getting that kind of money, we'll be calling those people out no matter who they are.
Yep, absolutely. So any other subjects you want to bring up before as we have a few minutes left in our show, Stephen?
Yeah, I want to bring up about the Copa America sites being chosen for
Yep.
the U.S. Soccer. That's a huge South American, soccer tournament that is going to be held here in America. Certainly a good experience for the United States to be, in preparation for the host city in the tournament next year. I am going to try and pull up the information about the venues, and certainly there are some nice, in addition, I should say, to the cities that are already chosen for the World Cup. There are some interesting cities that were chosen for this venue as well. So
Yeah, and
bear with me.
some were that omitted, by the way, that were a surprise. But I know that Miami is going to be the final. I think what else was Houston named as one of the sites as well, Stephen, if I recall off of my memory.
I
Um,
apologize. I was still showing the Buster Olney's article there. Here we go. This is from CBS Sports Golazo. This is the venue, Vegas. They were not chosen for this one. Arlington, Texas, where AT&T Stadium, that's in it. Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium. Uh, Interesting. Kansas City, they have two locations.
MLS site is one of the MLS. A few MLS stadiums were chosen for Copa America. I think that's a good move to bring that to MLS.
Yeah. Glendale, Arizona was chosen. SoFi Stadium, this is interesting because there have been a lot of disputes between the FIFA and the Kroenkes, who owns the Los Angeles Rams in that stadium, because they wouldn't rectify the. I forgot what the issue was, but we'll save that for another time. It's interesting that they chose the venue there too.
Yeah. So
this is going to be very interesting. You have MetLife, Houston, and then Austin, Texas, which is the home of FC Austin of MLS, which has hosted U.S. soccer matches in the past as well. Most recently, the U.S. versus Trinidad and Tobago in the Nations, CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals, where the U.S. struggled to beat them 3-0. So it's going to be a very interesting, very interesting test for the United States soccer in its preparation. The host cities certainly have to update their security and how they handle the venue, the policing, as well as the dealing with the crowd and some rowdy I don't want to say hooligans. Because we're not talking England here, but South Americans certainly are very, very passionate about soccer. We recently saw the CONMEBOL qualifying between Brazil and Argentina, where the fans of both nations fighting, and then the Brazilian police adding fuel to the fire with their handling. So I think U.S. The government, as well as the local and municipal and the state level, I think are better equipped, to handle things like this. But again, you never know until you deal with the problem. So this is going to be very, very interesting. You have rivalries that exist between Argentina certainly and Brazil, U.S. and Mexico, among others. When you have alcohol and the patriotism and all that kind of stuff mixed up, there's always going to be fire, and then unfortunately, people get injured, and even worse, lives get lost too. So this is going to be a very interesting test for U.S. Cities as they, prepare for not only for the Copa America as well as the World Cup 2 years from after Copa America as well.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Fox will have the rights to the Copa America as they did in the last Copa America. Also, as you mentioned, I think Miami is going to be the site of the final. Houston is going to be
Copa America, yes.
Yeah, I think Houston is going to be one of the semifinals, and I think
Charlotte is also the semifinalist, and they get the third place, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yeah, so I think it's a good move, especially if Argentina gets to the final, and if Messi is playing for Miami, that's just going to be a huge party, especially as he plays for Inter Miami down there. So
Right.
that's going to be a big party if that happens. But there's a long ways to go. You and I will be discussing how the United States will be playing. It will be going on around the same time as the UEFA Euro 2024 tournament. So that's going to be fun to watch. We're going to have a lot of great soccer next summer. So, Steve, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. As a soccer fan, I can't wait to what happens next year. Certainly with the with the all the soccer and both Europe and North America, South America, competing for the attention at the same time. So it's going to be a very, very interesting summer. Certainly, with the the baseball and basketball. At least the basketball coming to an end, and you only have baseball as the only sports to occupy pretty much for the entire summer until the NFL season kicks off. So it will be very, very interesting.
It's going to be very busy next year because we're going to have the Olympics in 2024 in Paris.
That's right.
We'll have the Euro 2024, and we'll have Copa America 2024. By the way, interesting news, Stephen, on the women's side, the English women did not qualify for the Olympics. They were on the verge of qualifying for it today. They had to defeat Scotland by a large amount, but the Netherlands, I think, had to also defeat their opponent by a large amount, and the Netherlands at the last moment got in over England. So England will not the women's runner-up in the Women's World Cup this year will not be in the Olympics in 2024. Sweden is also not going, so it's going to be a very wide open tournament for the Olympics. Next season, we know the United States women are on the verge of qualifying there as well if they haven't qualified already. But it's going to be very interesting to watch, and it's going to be a fun tournament. A lot of interesting soccer coming up in 2024, Stephen.
Absolutely. Well, Ken, let's put a bow on this show once again. Talk to a lot of covers about the very top news. NFL, college football playoff, and the baseball playoffs, and hopefully next week, we'll have a clear picture maybe on Ohtani's situation, and also looking at the week 14 of the NFL, and we'll discuss some of the top games that was played this coming week. Well, Ken, thanks for your time. And if you see the information scrolling at the very bottom, you could follow us on Twitter and our work. I'm at Asian Sports Fan Asian Sports Fan 1 on Twitter. I'm an online contributor for the Bear Goggles On, part of the fan-sided network dedicated to the Chicago Bears. And Ken Fang is at Twitter at Fang's Bites, and he is the online associate editor of sports media blog, Awful Announcing. Ken, thanks for your time. Have a great week, and we'll catch up again next week.
Have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.